You stand on a wind-bitten quay in 1588, and the world smells like salt, pitch, and wet rope. Spain rules horizons you cannot see, yet one storm-season decision will reveal how fragile an empire can be. The morning light over Lisbon turns the River Tagus into hammered silver. Gulls circle above forested masts, and the creak of rigging sounds like a giant instrument being tuned. You watch sailors shoulder casks and coils of cable, their boots thudding on planks slick with spray. Nearby, a clerk in dark wool counts barrels with a reed pen, lips moving silently. Numbers, names, destinations. It feels orderly, almost inevitable, as if the sea itself has been enrolled into the service of the crown. This is the Spanish Empire at its peak. In 1588, Philip II holds dominion that stretches from Iberian ports to American mountain mines, from Caribbean fortresses to Pacific crossings. Silver becomes coin in Castile, wages in Flanders, and credit in Genoa. The empire is not only territory, it is a system of winds, routes, contracts, and faith. But an empire is also a sound you can hear when you listen closely. The scrape of anchors, the cadence of a procession, the hush that falls when someone says, "The Armada." And if you lean in, you can almost catch a quieter question hidden beneath the confidence. What happens when the sea does not cooperate? You begin in Madrid, where the air is drier, the streets narrower, and the power more abstract. The royal court is not a single building so much as a moving gravity, secretaries, messengers, friars, and nobles, orbiting a man who rarely needs to raise his voice. Inside dim chambers, candles burn with a faint animal sweet smell of tallow. Papers are stacked like fortifications. A map is unfurled, edges weighted with metal. Its coastlines are ink, but the consequences are real. Philip's empire is close to an all-sun dominion. Spain holds Castile and Aragon, and now Portugal and its Atlantic expertise. Across the ocean lie New Spain and Peru, vast administrative worlds threaded with roads and guarded by forts. In Europe, Spain fights to keep the Dutch provinces under control and supports Catholic power in a continent split by confession. You move from map room to counting house. Money changes shape here. Bullion becomes credit, and credit becomes ships. Genoese financiers and Spanish officials negotiate rates that sound like prayers spoken too quickly. War is expensive. Fleets are expensive. Even peace is expensive, because peace still requires garrisons and payments that arrive on time. Above the streets, bells toll for mass. Below the streets, in cool storerooms, grain and powder wait in silence. Which seems more powerful, the ritual or the supply? And just when the empire feels unshakable, one detail changes everything. Nearly all of it depends on timing the ocean. Now you step into Seville, the empire's commercial heart, where the Guadalquivir carries the smell of mud and citrus, and where every crate seems labeled with a destination beyond the horizon. The city is crowded and bright in places, shadowed and intimate in others. Orange trees line courtyards. Water runs in narrow channels, murmuring past stone. Silk brushes your sleeve in a market lane. A vendor lifts a lid and releases warm cinnamon and pepper, spices that have traveled further than most men ever will. You pass the Casa de la Contratación, where the empire tries to make the sea legible. Pilots are examined, cargoes registered, routes recorded. It is bureaucracy as navigation, an attempt to control storms with ink. Nearby, chart makers copy coastlines with careful strokes. A globe sits on a table like a captured planet. Down by the docks, you hear a language made of shouted measurements. Cable? Cask. Ballast. Rope fibers bite into palms. Pitch glistens black in sunlight. A mallet taps a rhythm against oak. Soldiers linger near stacked pikes, metal tips catching the light like needles. Priests move among crews, offering blessing and warning with equal gentleness. Daily life across the empire is a tapestry of contrasts. In Castile's interior, wheat fields ripple under a hard sun, and village bells set the day's pace. In Mexico City, canals and plazas hold markets where maize, cacao, and cloth change hands beneath arcades. In Lima, sea mist clings to walls while officials argue over taxes that will become defense. In Manila, Spanish authority is newer and more fragile, and Chinese silk meets Mexican silver in transactions that bind the Pacific to Europe. What would you notice first, splendor or strain? Because even here, in crowded streets, you can sense obligation. Taxes, tithes, levies, and the constant need to feed war. Somewhere beyond these markets, ships are being prepared with an urgency that does not match ordinary days. You return to the coast, but not to a single harbor. You move along a chain of preparations. Lisbon, Corunna, Santander. Timber, canvas, iron, and men assemble into something larger than any one port can comprehend. The Armada is not merely a fleet, it is a moving promise, a plan built out of oak ribs and royal intent. The plan is spoken in controlled tones. Spain will send a great fleet north through the Channel and rendezvous with the Duke of Parma's army in the Low Countries. Together, sea and land will press England into submission and restore Catholic power. It sounds clean when written down. On paper, distances behave. But you are standing on a deck now, and paper has no wind. The ships smell of tar and damp wood. Decks are gritty with sand for footing. Barrels are wedged tight, the hull flexing with low groans. Cannon muzzles, dark circles like open mouths, sit behind timber. Crews practice drills, voices rising and falling like waves. A chaplain's Latin floats above it all, steady as if to iron out uncertainty. There is tension in officers' faces. The Atlantic does not care about kings. The Channel is narrow, crowded, and unpredictable. And England is not a passive shore. English ships are quicker, their captains practiced in disruption. Their style, maneuver, distance, and sustained gunnery differs from Spain's preference for closing, grappling, and boarding. Above the gun decks, banners ripple with saints and royal symbols. Below, men sleep among coils of rope and spare spars, listening to water slap the hull. Which world feels more real, the ideals above, or the damp timbers below? And as the Armada gathers, a quiet open loop hangs in the air. If Spain is truly at its peak, why does this moment feel like a wager? The fleet finally moves, and the horizon becomes crowded with sails, white, cream, weather-stained, swelling like lungs as wind fills them. You watch ships align into disciplined formations. The sea is flecked with sunlight, but the mood is solemn. Drums beat. Commands carry across water. The Empire's power becomes visible. Floating fortresses, thousands of men, supplies measured for weeks. Scale itself begins to feel like certainty. As the Armada enters the Channel, space tightens. Coasts draw closer. The water changes character. Tides, currents, shifting winds. England's presence is felt not as a wall, but as motion. Distant sails, then nearer shapes, then cannon reports that roll like thunder under low cloud. The fighting is not spectacle here, but atmosphere. Smoke drifts and thins. Signals flash. Boats dart. In pauses, you hear strained wood and short, sharp calls. The sea is crowded with intention, and every maneuver becomes a test of nerve. Then night comes, and fear takes the shape of fire. Fireships drift into the anchored Spanish formation. You feel the sudden chaos. Shouted orders, the snap of cut cables, oars splashing as boats shove off. Flames reflect on black water. Smoke stings the throat. The sky glows in a way that does not belong to nature. No decisive clash is required for panic to do its work. Confusion alone can scatter discipline. And there it is, the peak moment that also reveals the Empire's limit. Spain's power is immense, but it is not always flexible. A plan that depends on precise coordination between fleet and army strains under wind, tide, and alarm. What would you choose in that darkness? Hold formation and risk fire, or break and risk separation? When morning returns, the fleet is still formidable, but no longer perfectly arranged. The Channel's tight stage turns into a wider chase, and every mile north carries Spain further from the rendezvous it needs. One more question lodges in your mind. If an empire can command half the world, why can it not command one stretch of water? Now you follow the route the sea imposes. The Armada moves away from the Channel and into harsher Atlantic edges. The wind grows colder. The sky lowers. Rain needles the surface. Here, the Empire's logistics, barrels, biscuits, fresh water, matter more than ideology. You imagine men below decks counting dwindling rations, listening for leaks, smelling sourness where clean water should be. Sails are patched. Spars are replaced. The fleet must attempt return by rounding Scotland and Ireland, a long passage for ships already strained. The empire's peak is measured now not in banners, but in endurance. Back in Spain, messages arrive in fragments, reports, rumors, prayers. In Seville, merchants linger in doorways scanning the river for masts that do not appear. In Madrid, secretaries adjust ledgers and revise expectations. The empire does not collapse in a day. It absorbs shocks the way a ship absorbs waves, by bending, by groaning, by relying on the strength of its frame. Spain remains powerful after 1588. American silver still flows, though unevenly. Armies still fight in Europe. Influence still shapes the Catholic world. Yet something shifts in perception. The idea of Spanish inevitability, unstoppable ascent, has been challenged. England gains confidence. The Dutch continue to resist with renewed determination. The sea, once imagined as Spain's road, looks more like a contested frontier. Above the grand narrative sits a quieter truth. Even at its peak, Spain is stretched. Its strength is real, but so are its costs: financial strain, administrative complexity, dependence on fragile convoys, and the ocean's unpredictability. So the open loop closes without a single dramatic ending. It closes with a lesson written in salt. Power can be vast and still be vulnerable. And as you step away from the quay, you understand the peak of an empire is not only the moment it rises highest, it is the moment you can finally see the drop on the other side. You look once more across the water, where the wind keeps moving, indifferent to crowns and creeds. In 1588, the Spanish Empire stands at its summit, global, wealthy, confident, and organized beyond anything Europe has seen. Yet the same ocean that carries its silver and soldiers also carries uncertainty. And as the last light fades on the harbor, one question lingers in the rigging's soft song. When an empire reaches its peak, is it hearing triumph, or the first hint of change?